I think anybody that comes up with an invention should always look at getting it to revenue.
Right,
we live in a different time today than we did 15 to 20 years ago.
We help people with ideas get them to revenue.
All right, welcome back to another edition of the 52 Launch Podcast. That is the sexiest name that we can come up with because it's what we do. What do you want me to tell you? Today's episode, obviously, I'm Peter. This is Dan. Thank you for tuning in. Today we're going to take a look at questions that you should ask companies before you're hiring them to help you get your product to market. So these are the questions that we get asked all the time, but the real purpose of our conversation today is we encounter a lot of people that hire us that have been to other places, spent a lot of money, and did not get the results that they wanted. And it really, for self-motivation, it's not that we could help more people or sell more clients or get them to hire us more. It's the fact that, you know, the ones that do hire us, are always our goal is to have them have more money left over for marketing.
Right.
Right. So when you're spending money to get through the process, that's a necessary evil. But having money left over at the end so you can properly market your product is our actual goal here.
Yeah, and what we're about to do, some people would call us crazy for essentially giving our audience all of our entire way that we go to market, if you want to call it our secret sauce. But look, if we left things alone, we'd be more than happy to continue to have these help companies that exist. We've got clients that go to them, spend a lot of money, and then they either are referred to us by the very company that took their money to begin with, or they end up finding us a different way. And again, we're happy, except it's kind of a miserable feeling for the inventor or the entrepreneur because they've already spent $15,000 to $20,000 that they could have used
to get further along.
Have some ad dollars left over after going through our process to kickstart their success even faster. So it's frustrating, very frustrating that someone
especially
has
when you see a good idea and
money.
They're tapped, right? Like that's the clients I feel the worst for is that they're like, man, this is a great idea,
right?
And he or she is like, I just can't. I can't go backwards, you know. I think that's the adage is that, you know, when things are wrong, when you get to that finish line, you have to go back and start over to get it right. I mean,
it's funny because when we get our submission forms, you know, the people fill them out. Whenever I see that someone's filed for a patent, I don't know what our closing ratio is on those clients, but it's got to be pretty damn high.
Yeah.
Because they've got an investment already. They probably have been somewhere else. They would have had to have gone somewhere to get a patent application done. They would have had to have some type of a drawing or something to file. So we always feel like, you know, they already understand, you know,
part of the process.
Exactly.
And I think the questions that we put out here today, Dan, really help you understand the entirety of the process, right? Because I think a lot of times you've hired good companies, and we're not knocking any of these companies. Like a lot of them have done a phenomenal job. We just did a survey with all of our clients, and we were surprised to find out how many people have been hired before us.
Even like they actually went to two places.
Right. It's been two or three places. And so what we've broken down today is, again, if you're hiring these companies, it's for your expectation. And some of these companies will probably meet your expectation if you're not looking to go all the way. Yeah. Our expectation.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, we want you to hire us. Let's make no qualms about it. That's what we'd like you to do.
Obviously.
So we are going to share with you all of the questions that you need to ask anybody, including us. Before you spend $1, you should understand what you're getting.
And I'm just going to make the assumption that everyone that's looking to hire us wants to actually physically get their product to market, and they want to do it themselves, and they want to own it, and they want a support team that helps them launch their idea so they can start making revenue.
I get that, Pete, but at the same time, the people that go to
other companies.
Another company, I'm not going to say their name.
And if we do, you got to bleep it out. So.
And it does have the word invent in it.
Yeah, Invention help companies.
Yes, exactly.
There's several of them.
You know, there's a promise that they can possibly get you a licensing deal or a royalty deal. That promise is like
we're
I've always,
going to teach them the questions that they can ask, so they'll get the answers, not from us,
right?
Not what we know to be true, but you'll get them.
But what you had said was, we help, get their product to revenue. I think anybody that comes up with an invention should always look at getting it to revenue.
Right,
we live in a different time today than we did 15 to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Today, I don't have a daughter or a son that's 8 years old, but they could actually go on Amazon and start selling products at that age because they are so, in tune with technology more so than our generation, that anybody can sell a product on Amazon.
All the tools are there that every individual in the world
Why
can now
would
take
you
their own product to
ever
market.
give it to somebody else to do when they don't have the same tenacity or the same gumption or the same motivation to market your product? You could be one of 1,000.
And I'll say to those that have all the skills to do that, even the 8-year-olds, at some point.
Well, we don't have an 8-year-old, but we do have
12
some teenagers.
Yeah, we've got a 12-year-old, 13. We've had young people.
Oh, that's right. The kid that has the brush.
Misty brush.
Yeah.
But the whole point is this is going to help you ask the right questions, get to the right answers that you can help make the right decision for you. Our goal is, like Dan said, I'd love to have everybody hire us, but it's also, let's get the mindset straight of what your expectations are. So let's deal with all the invention help companies. Right. So to me, the first step is, I would ask, what steps does your company take to understand my product? Right. Because a lot of times we see a design that can't be manufactured. It barely, it does a good job of demonstrating the idea. But when you look at it, you're like, I would never buy that. Okay. Right. So that's the first question. So how do we do it?
It's very simple. And this is going to sound extremely arrogant, but we pick you to hire us. How's that?
Yeah.
For a set of balls, right? I mean, we literally will not let you hire us if we don't feel comfortable bringing your idea to market. It's that simple. I mean, we literally have to get to revenue come hell or high water. So it has to be a good idea. It has to be in the right space, a growing space, and it has to have a wow factor. And of course, the entrepreneur has to be willing to to work alongside us to ensure the success of the product. And again, that's why we have an interview process, and we give away an hour to sometimes 3 hours of our time just going through that process of understanding each other and learning about each other, and
really deep diving into the idea.
Right.
How is your idea? And again, inventors have this deep vision of their idea that sometimes they can't explain.
Right.
So getting it out and getting it on paper, that's one part. But then you still have to analyze, is that something that can be manufactured cost effectively, or can it be, right? So this is why it's so important to make sure that our process is designed to make sure that we get the idea, and before we move over to the next step, that everyone is extremely comfortable with how we're going to move forward.
Our whole team has to be on board with any idea that we bring on, and that's one of the reasons that Peter and I are the only two people that interview potential clients. And I mean, you can call it arrogance, or you can just call it, we're the type of people that are just not taking someone's money just for the sake of taking someone's money.
Right.
We don't need it that badly. So again, our biggest differentiator, in my opinion, is that we do an interview process. We give away a lot of time understanding the entrepreneur, or the inventor, understanding the product, the marketplace, what the wow factor, what the benefits are, what the values are of the product. And if it all lines up, then we decide whether or not we want to work together. And when we do, we're successful.
Well, and I'll give them this before we get into the second question that you should ask. It's because at the end of the day, we are your manufacturers. We're a manufacturing company.
Right.
We are in the invention space because that is the cool space to be in. We have met incredible entrepreneurs. We've taken close to 300 clients to revenue at this point. And this is where our motivation is to get through the process so that you can get to revenue. And we, along the way, want to be your manufacturers and are your manufacturers. So again, our network of, I'm not sourcing manufacturing. We're not going to other places and we have a network that we are your manufacturers. 52 Launch, at the end of the day, is a manufacturer that helps bring people's ideas to market.
Right. And we've chosen this space because there's a big void in this space.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of companies that roll their sleeves up like we do and do the work. And we want to benefit from your success as well. And that's why we are, there's symbiotic relationship from the get-go, because we too want to see you succeed, because the more you're successful, the more manufacturing that we're doing for you. And guess what happens? One of the reasons why we're good at this is, unfortunately, is because we're freaking old, and we've got a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience, and and that, I guess, allows us to have the mentality that we do feel like we're pretty good at picking winning products, and we know we've got a great team behind us.
I think mostly, we'll be honest with you, if your product isn't good, we can talk about how it would be better,
right?
But then we can also talk to you about some ideas that we have invented ourselves, or that our team has said, hey, there's a need in the market for this, let's find the right person that's in there. So there's plenty of ways that we can get there. But let's get through the topic of questions that you should ask, right? So obviously the first one, and I've got them written up here, so if I'm looking up, yes, I am reading off a script, so you guys try to memorize all this. So the first one is, what steps does your company take to make sure they understand my idea? We just covered that. Right. Number 2, will the product design video, because again, all these invention help companies, they love giving you this design video, but that design video, you need to ask them, are the details going to be there in a CAD file that I can then show to a manufacturer how my idea works, how it functions, and possibly get it manufactured? Right. And that is where they all fall short, right? Like there's no internal...
So again, back, prior to the internet, right? And I was, of course, we were live working, right? A drawing would suffice. I mean, you'd get a nice drawing and you could see it, sort of like your house. When you build a house, you've got your plans. You really can't visualize what it's going to look like inside the house, a 3D kind of picture of it, but you could see on the on a piece of paper, one-dimensional, like what it would look like.
Can you build a house without the design schematics?
Of course you cannot. So my point is that a video is what? It's sexy,
right?
Okay, and they know that, and so when they show you an animation or a video, that's really the first time, unless you happen to understand CAD and renderings, that's the first time you're actually seeing your product in a two-dimensional situation. So you get excited when you see that, because you can start to see.
And it's a
they
deliverable.
Know that, and that's the reason they do that for you.
It is a deliverable for them, and that's what they do. So, again, just get more detailed on the product on that design, because that video really, it's a deliverable, but it does not get you any further than that. It's a sizzle cell. In today's world, talk is cheap, and I'm going to say a video is cheap. You need to get the video plus all the details. So next one is,
get a better understanding of what type of patent you are getting, and this is the reason why.
Sure.
There are apparently now there are 3 patents we're learning this past week. There is the what we call a provisional patent, which is essentially a placeholder until you get your official drawings and your claims that you want to make to file then a non-provisional patent, which is the more expensive, and that's actually the asset that you really need if you plan on selling your product or your idea down the road. So again, the initial one is a placeholder that's generally between $1,200 and $2,000, $2,500, and then the more expensive patent can range from
$12,000 to $25,000, depending on how many rejections it gets. From
we were told by 2 different people a couple of weeks ago that there's what did they call it?
So they call it the poor man's patent.
Yeah, poor man's patent. And that's when you actually write your idea down on a piece of paper and then you mail it to yourself.
So let's be clear, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, they will put it right on their website. That is not acceptable.
Exactly.
So, whatever you're postmarking and proving that you had the idea on this day and mail it to yourself in an unopened envelope, we're beyond that, or that was never a thing.
Yeah, so make sure you know what you're going to get. And again, most companies are going to, they're going to do a placeholder or a non-provisional.
So here's
a provisional patent.
Yeah. So here's why I'm bringing this up, so you guys can ask this question, because the patenting is a process, right? And so when you have an idea and you have your NDAs and you share it with a small circle of friends, you don't need to protect your idea at that point. What you need to do is protect your idea at the next level. At the next level, you want to make sure that your patent, when you get to the provisional patent, you have 12 months. And it feels like you're getting a patent, but you're not. What you are getting is a pressure that in 12 months from now, you got to spend the other $15,000 to $25,000 to get your idea to market.
Right.
And in our camp, let's get the product designed, developed, and file the provisional patent, which is the $1,200 to $1,500 one, before you launch.
Right.
And then you've got 12 months with revenue coming in to go and do your full non-provisional patent.
Right. We have a lot of people that call us and say, I love what you guys do, but I got to get my patent first. No, you don't. Actually, you don't do it first ever. It's like there's something called an NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement that you would have anybody sign that you would share your idea with. That'll protect you just as much as the patent's going to protect you initially. So Peter's right. You do the patent like a day before we go live on our website. That gives us a full year to make any changes, by the way, that we want to make on the product, should there be any, over the course of that first year.
Right. So any invention help company that you want to talk to, make sure you get a better understanding of the patent process, because again, what they're telling you is very exciting, especially when you're not paying attention or when you're motivated to get your idea to market. It feels right, but there's a better process to that, and really it's a hook for them to then charge you for more hours later on within 12 months because you've got to file. Because again, if you file the provisional and you don't file after 12 months, you give up all rights to your idea and your patent process.
Right.
So don't do that. All right, what's our next one?
Please better define my expectations of getting a licensing deal. And really, a license is not even the word that you should be using. It's more of like a royalty agreement, because licensing actually refers to, if I wanted to print the Major League Baseball teams on a product, I would have to pay $1 million plus to have the rights to
get the Disney princesses or the Marvel comic characters.
It's more of a getting a royalty agreement. So licensing is not the correct word, but many people ask us if we
seems to be the word of choice. So royalty is the correct word. Right. Licensing is what people believe that they can get. And again, it seems that it's really in the realm of these invention companies. Their process is this: you hire them. They will give you. They'll create the I guess the sell sheet is really what they're giving you.
All the sales collateral.
The sales collateral, and they have a network of people. Now, obviously, I'd say 80% of our clients have been through this process. So we love that the invention help space gets them to this process. The goal is that I think there's more efficient ways to do that. I'd like to save that money and put it towards marketing dollars towards the end. But here's what you need to just ask: how long can that take? Right? Like, how long does it take to get a license deal?
Oh, I don't know a single person that's got a licensing deal.
So we know the answer.
Not a single one.
But again, here's what I'm saying: if you're looking around to other people, I'd like to get their answers, because now you're accountable to them. Have them put it in writing so they can give you something. What are your responsibilities in the licensing deal, if there ever was one? Like, we've learned from one person who, and again, this was a very high-end electronic toy that one of the big toy companies gave him, and not through an invention company, because he's a toy developer. But in the end, he was responsible for all the legal stuff, right? And even though they won the lawsuit, he made no money in the entire process. So understand what your responsibilities are, what their responsibilities are, and then how does this get to revenue?
Right. When do you get revenue?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I don't know anybody that's ever gotten a licensing deal, successful licensing deal. So, so I can't even answer that question. I guess you can Google it and find out.
Yeah. So and again, it's a question to ask them. Yep. They've got averages. I mean, they should do about 2,400 clients a month, so they should have pretty good stats as far as what they're going to be getting to market and what the numbers are.
I think it's actually 2,400 a year.
2,400 a year. Yeah. There you go. All right.
This is one particular company.
Yeah, and here's how you ask that question. Out of the last 100 clients, what percentage have received a profitable license deal?
I'd go out and say the last 10,000 clients. Give me an example of a licensing deal. And if it was a deal that predates back to 1980, then I think you've answered your question there.
Right.
It's just very hard to get their ideas are not for sale. No one's going to spend a penny on an idea. It's the execution part of it, and you will get a better royalty deal if you have sales, because sales is the trump of all trumps. If you've got sales, then and you know what it costs to acquire a customer, you'll get many opportunities for a royalty agreement.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something because you said back in 1984, and you're 100% right. And it's the first time you've said this, and subconsciously just triggered me. Things have changed in the last 10 years, right? Maybe back in the 80s and 90s, licensing deals were real because companies need to do inventions and they take a look at it.
Yeah.
In today's world, companies are no different than us as individuals. They know that they can take a look on Amazon and do their own research and studies, and if they wanted to bring a product to market, they have all the resources to do that. So why would they need us?
Right. Well, and what does their target audience look like?
Yeah,
they look like us.
Exactly.
Right? Because we can afford to actually spend some money on an idea.
Right.
So many of us are still in the dark ages. We're not doing searching on Google.
So as much as it's become,
they're taking advantage of these people that really don't know where to go, and they are sold a bill of goods that, again, we're not knocking them. They do a good job at what they do.
Yeah.
But in the end, we seem to get a lot of those people here
who are frustrated
after they've spent a lot of money that we could have used in marketing to really kickstart their success. That's all we're saying.
That's it. Those are the questions I asked. Now, I'm going to give you some bonus questions because if you're the type of person who wants to actually get your product into manufacturing, onto a launch pad, and start creating revenue with your idea, here's what you need to ask, right? Could you estimate, and this is how you would ask them, could you estimate what my tooling and mold cost would be? Right. We get asked that question all the time because we're manufacturers. I mean, we can put out some generalizations. We have enough data and stats to put together, what we think a size and shape are, and very rarely are we off at this point. Right. I mean, there's sometimes, maybe 1 to 10%, 1 to 3% of the time, there's something that's so unique that, I might take a few days before I can get you that number, but we can always get to that number. So that's a good question to ask anybody that you're looking to hire. Can they get you an estimate on what your tooling and mold costs would be? And for those of you that don't know what tooling and molding is,
it's the piece of steel that is manufactured for you that actually creates your product. It's essentially a reverse look at your product. Your product comes out of a mold.
Right, that creates a plastic shell. So even something like as simple as a mouse has parts that get plastic injection molded into that big steel tool cavity, and then go from there. So,
next question that you'd want to ask: what do you feel the per unit cost should be, and what the market price should be? And again, hugely important question to ask because if they don't know, then they really don't care. So we do. Again, we have to make sure that we're, making something for, $1 and selling it for 10, making something for 5, selling it for 20, making something for 20, selling it for 100.
That question is all about creating margin, which is what you need to have a business. Because make no mistake about it. If you are going to be an inventor, you are moving into becoming an entrepreneur and a business person. Because if you're bringing your product to market, you need to ask these. So you're right. Everyone should know that. And so, how hard is it to find out how hard is it to find out what something should be priced at in the market?
You do some research. That's what you do online.
Specifically,
Amazon.
Thank you. So that took a little bit of coaxing, but that's how hard it is. So if someone can answer that question, they didn't do the research. They're not, like you said, they don't care, so they don't know where to go and look for that information. To us, that's where you start, right? Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. Well, the end in mind is $39 at retail. Right. And don't ever look at the highest branded price point that's getting $69, right? You're not that company yet. You're not Apple. You're not getting that type of money. You've got to look at where the price point is for the average everyday buyer, and you got to work backwards from there. So you've got to make your product cost effective, which means you've got to design it to still be a product, but to have the margin.
The important thing is that if they can't answer that question, at the end of the day, they really don't have your best interest in mind. And again, to us, that is a huge red flag. And it's just something that we take pride in making sure that we are going to be, we have to align ourselves with success, which means that we have to manufacture something cost effectively and have it at the right retail price.
Yep. So next question is, what are your manufacturing capabilities? Do you actually manufacture your inventor's products?
Right.
Like not sourcing it out, not getting a third party, not sending it to vendors that I don't have any relationship with. that's a key part, because if they don't have the capabilities to be manufacturers, how are they going to get you answers on can something be designed or molded the way you're expecting it to, right? So this is where a lot of the work up front isn't there, because they don't have the capabilities or the understanding to know how something is manufactured.
Right. It's the whole reason that 52 Launch exists, not exists. The whole reason we're successful at what we do is we have those manufacturers. We've had 15 to 20 year relationships with manufacturers. So we're not just going on Alibaba and trying to figure out who's going to make our next product, or we're not going on Google to search companies in Shenzhen or Shanghai or any other place in China. We already have the relationships established. So we already know the product's being made in the right spot. So when we see a product, we already know where we think it's going to end up. But in order for us to make sure of that, we are definitely getting multiple pricing to ensure that we have the right price. So again, it's vetted relationships that we have. We do quality checks on everything that leaves China.
Well, I'm going to say, more importantly, we're insured as manufacturers.
Correct.
Right? Like we have policies on all our products.
We take the responsibility.
Right.
We're not passing it off to a sourcing person. So at the end of the day, make sure that they either do their own manufacturing over there, or they've got some pretty incredibly vetted partners. And if they're just sourcing it for you, and they use the word sourcing, again, a red flag as far as we're concerned, because that means that there are multiple levels of profit or margin that's added on to your final cost.
So and here's the last question that you'd ask is, do you help launch and market your Inventor's product? Like, do they have services to help after the end of your contract with these invention help companies?
Yeah. So the answer to that is it's not really fair, because
I didn't mean to make this fair.
No, but we're kind of the I guess trendsetters in that area. We do advertise from napkin to revenue, or from conception to revenue. We are that company that gets you all the way to the end, because we want the next order, and then we want the third and fourth order. That's how we've built our business, on reorders.
Well,
so if you're not getting, if a company's not helping you promote and sell your product, then you're leaving it. We would be leaving it to luck.
Well,
at that point.
That's where our relationship becomes symbiotic.
Right.
We are your manufacturers. You're in charge of selling. If we just left that all up to you and didn't support you in that, it just takes longer to get to the growth part.
Right.
We're there along the way, and again, the services are a la carte at that point. So we're survivability is everything when you start a business. But again, if a company doesn't have those with the thought in mind, they are selling a product that gets you halfway through or quarter way through, and that's the number one thing we found in our survey, is that our clients are frustrated, not disappointed, not upset, because they know they signed the contract and they things were explained right, but their expectation was they wanted to get to revenue, and they wanted to see their product out on the market, on Amazon, on Facebook ads. And that's where, when they realize afterwards, and they've spent a year through the process and 2 years waiting for these licensing agreement, the number one thing they said, I wish I would have taken action sooner, and not waited the 2 years for the license deal that never came through.
It's the whole reason, again, we developed our entire online marketing team, was to ensure that we're successful when you're successful. We have to help you drive sales so we can become successful at the same time you're becoming successful. So again, our online manufacturing team is an extremely talented group, and it's taken us a couple years to build it.
Well, one day we'll get into the supply chain that goes back to that, but I think this is enough for this podcast, because I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a little break. We're going to talk about the next companies that people hire, and it'll be a part 2 to this podcast 23, I think. Something
sounds good to me.
Yeah. All right, so again, appreciate you tuning in. Please like, share, follow us, comment if you've got questions, reach out to us anytime. If you are an inventor or an entrepreneur and you're looking to bring a product to market, please, we'd love to get on a call with you and just discuss the opportunities and give you some direction. These podcasts are really designed to help anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur or an inventor, to help you get your products to market and do it the right way.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So again, thanks for
guys.
tuning in. We'll see you on part 2.
Bye.